Where's my glasses? It's America's 250th birthday. So of course, I did the only respectable thing. I'm dressing like I owe someone 5 shillings and making colonial food. But make it Clark's. A salad that's actually a flex. A punch that's actually like the OG sangria, but not Spanish. The crab cake before it was the crab cake. All the things, all the goods, because some things never go out of style. And believe it or not, some of these things really make for the perfect hot girl DC summer. You know what makes a good hot girl DC summer? This wig, mama. Look at this. Huh? Huh? So here is the whole actual point of this video. 250 years ago, when this country was being formed, when you hosted, the whole idea was display. It wasn't really about how food tasted, it was about proving you could put on a show. The table was a place for you to prove that you had money, that you had connections, that you had status, and most of all, that you had taste. Every little detail from what they served, the ingredients they could get their hands on, down to how it was arranged on the table. You could see all of this in what they served. It all meant something. As I started doing some research about this and looking at 18th century recipes, I realized we are still kind of doing this. And what I find with so many of these old recipes that I look through is we still make a lot of the same food. No recipe is original, okay? If you really like to look at historical recipes, so many things we've been doing for so long, we just adapt to whatever is available to us at that time. And even over the course of 250 years, we still use tablescapes, dinner parties, meals as a way to express something and show something. Now, is that always the best thing? I don't know. Some of us are truly still using it as just a flex. But who doesn't love a good tasting meal and a gorgeous tablescape? So today we're going to go through some recipes that I found through the Colonial Williamsburg website. I'm going to link all of those in the description below. And we're going to find ways to make them into our modern day cuisine. We're doing Hot Girl Summer meets 250 years of American history and food that genuinely, to me, feels very classic Americana cuisine, especially to the DC area. I mean, come on. We've all been busting down these wigs for 250 years, so it's time to really give this all a moment. So let's get into it. This punch is Colonial Sangria, and I will die on this hill. When I saw this recipe, I was like, this is sangria, because it has brandy in it, and every sangria recipe I've ever made has brandy in it, which I never buy brandy because it gives old women. It is delicious, but it's just not for my home cocktail kit. But what is so important to know is citrus was such a flex. Even to this day, if you live in most of the East Coast, it's really hard to grow citrus. I used to live next to this person who had a lemon tree in their backyard when I lived in Virginia, and they had to cover it all the time because they left it outside and it just wasn't hot enough, but they got lemons off of it. They really did. But citrus basically needs to be imported. And so when people would entertain at their homes, they would ship over citrus and they would serve this punch on the table for important meetings and important gatherings because it was a flex. It's like today when you have a party and you buy expensive bottles of champagne or wine. It's something to show that you take this seriously and it's important to you. That was kind of the equivalent here, doing this with a specific ingredient. So let's get into how I made this punch. That thing you were watching earlier, For some reason, the recipe calls that a sherbet. It's just basically a lime-infused simple syrup, so that way there's not chunks of sugar in this. Some limes, some lemons, and an orange. I opted for a blood orange, but when I actually finally got to the point where I cut into this blood orange, it was the least blood orange I have seen in my life. Most of the time, these were like bright red. This was giving grapefruit, but it wasn't a grapefruit. I made sure of it. Just juiced everything into the pitcher. Left some slices so that way I could put those in. Got the last little bits out. And then I decided to opt for a spiced rum. I figured that would be a nice little homage to what we get as an import now versus brandy being an import from that time. And then it added in some white wine. This has been my favorite for the summer. I would classify this wine as what I like to call a porch pounder, which are my favorite types of wine. This was the point where I realized it was all not going to fit in this very nice hand-blown Mexican glass pitcher I have, so we had to opt for the Walmart special just to make sure that this could sit in the fridge. I also added in some cardamom and ginger because the recipes called for spices. These weren't the suggested ones, but they sounded so good with this, and I'm so glad I added them in. Okay, I genuinely think this is pronounced Salmagundy. I just think that feels right. Is that actually what it is? I have no idea, but I'm gonna pronounce it Salmagundy. And this, you can't tell me this doesn't look like those old Midwestern salads where they like do it up in all these layers. The whole point of this in the 18th century was presentation, right? Ingredients were not so complex, so the thing that people were going off of was your plating. It's basically just a bunch of ingredients lined up on the plate, which if that's just not a girl dinner board 250 years ago, I don't know what this is. Honestly, what's the most fun thing about this salad is the fact that it's really just like a chop and assemble type thing. That's my favorite thing about all salads, is that's kind of the nature of the beast. But what is the most important thing about colonial salad is you need to remember that we are here to flex on people, okay? So it's about a fine chop. It's about concentric circles. We're gonna be up in here doing our thing. Erwan could never. How much ham is enough ham? You know, I used to not like ham at all, and now I've grown into it as an adult. I don't know what it is. And I got Virginia ham. That felt very right to me. Have you ever been to one of those salad bars, specifically either at the old Charlie Brown Steakhouse or where else had a good salad bar? Haas's? I saw Pennsylvania thing specifically, but they always had that cubed ham. Bring that back. It probably was so processed and like not good for you. This is how you save your presentation. You eat all the ugly parts. I also have 2 hard-boiled eggs going back here. The recipe calls for 4, but I'm not having any of my ye old relatives or patrons of the time over to share this with, so we shall have the recipe. Do you know what's crazy that I keep thinking about? Is that during this time, stock bag, during this time, if like there was so much risk with eating so much of this food, right? Like we talked about seafood and stuff. If you got food poisoning, indoor plumbing was not a thing. So best of luck to your bowels, because that's actually an insane thought, to either have to go outside or like blow up a chamber pot that's just gonna sit there in your house. Terrible. I can't even imagine. Now, if you look at the original recipe for this salad, it does also have chicken in it. I just removed it because I didn't want chicken on it. But I do think it would be a nice addition because this does give a little bit Cobb salad. It's basically lettuce, onion, ham, hard-boiled egg, which I am flexing on y'all with how perfect these hard-boiled eggs came out. My God. You chop everything up nice and fine. It does have anchovies. I know most of you, if you try this, are going to take the anchovies out. I'm telling you, they add this delicious saltiness. Consider it. Consider adding them or keeping them, I should say. To go with the salad, it suggests a very simple vinaigrette, a little bit of lemon juice, which I foraged out of the last little bits of those lemons, olive oil, vinegar, salt, and pepper. That's literally it. Now, I think this is going to go better with a creamy dressing, so once we get there and have everything assembled, we'll compare and contrast. Now, the key to this salad is right here. When we're assembling this, this is where we're going to make this shine. This is where we tell the people that we mean business, baby. Colonial America isn't ready for what we have coming to them in this salad. And it comes in layers and in circles and in lots of ham trying to run off this plate away from me. But we got there, and we got there eventually. Did you ever think a crab cake could be colonial? Because I did not. I was thinking, okay, yes, seafood obviously has been in our area for a very long time. If you're here in the mid-Atlantic, blue crabs, we have Chesapeake Bay oysters. There's a really big scallop. There's a really big bay scallop flow. I don't know what else to say about that. The scallops are a-flowing here. This recipe is probably the closest historical and like the oldest recipe that I have found, and it's not even that old. So, Marilyn, your most iconic dish, we can calm down a little bit about it. So today, I'm actually going to make two versions of this. I'm going to make the flat crab cake and then a standard crab cake, and we're gonna make two different dipping sauces too, so we can do a little compare and contrast moment. Because I definitely think looking at this recipe, the evolution was necessary because sometimes we've just come up with better ways of doing things, hence why you don't see many people wearing this wig anymore. Something you also need to know about colonial America is I think a lot of us have a little bit of a difficult time separating colonial America from Gilded Age America because they're both old. And they both have different ideas of like what wealth and society looked like, but they're very far apart. Colonial America was much simpler, so even trying to like really flex on people, it was just a more simple time. We were forming the country, even like the founding fathers, they were people who were passionate about their freedom and working towards the goal of creating America. So entertaining was of course a part of like society that they had brought that idea over with them, like the cultural ingrained idea that in order to have important meetings with people and other things, you kind of needed to have this entertaining aspect. But it was not super common during this time because money was scarce. We had bigger fish to fry, okay? We're forming a whole separate country. We're penning important papers and it's taking forever because we gotta use a feather instead of a pen. All the things. It was a very different time. This is a direct quote from this recipe from Cooks and Confections Dictionary from 1726. It says, first boil a large crab. Take the meat out of the great claws. then flour and fry it. Then take the meat out of the body, strain it, keep one half to be fried and the other for the sauce. Mix that you fry with almond paste, grated bread, salt, nutmeg, and yolks of eggs. Disgusting. That does not sound good. And I get that we could try it. I'm too nervous. And crab meat's expensive, y'all, and I'm not willing to waste it. And I make really good crab cakes. So what I have never done before is fried these things like they do. So I got lump crab meat. I didn't get the jumbo lump. I know, sue me, but it smells so good. I literally got this morning. If you're gonna mix it up with a bunch of filler and stuff, just go for the lumps. Save yourself a little bit of coin. We are gonna modify my regular crab cake recipe, and we will use this as sort of a guide. One thing about me too is I am going to quickly sort through my crab meat to see if there's any bits and bobs I can get out, because I will chomp down on one bit of shell. The meal's over. The meal is over. I am done. I am finished. That is the end. And it's not worth it to me. I think it's also not worth it to most people. You give it a little once over, and everyone has a much better experience because you decided to take a couple seconds and pull out a little handful of hard bits you found. There's always going to be some. It's inevitable. It's kind of going to be the same thing. They do ground almonds, which is like almond flour, essentially. The OG so basically these recipes. Colonial Williamsburg decoded Old English tiny talk. Shout out to y'all. They took the recipe, converted it to a real recipe. The real recipe says ground almonds. To me, that's just the almond flour. That's really all almond flour is. And then it has breadcrumbs in it. Every single crab cake has breadcrumbs in it. So, let's just do standard breadcrumbs, okay? And I'm gonna do panko because I like the added texture of that. They also do salt and nutmeg. That's crazy. I don't know why. Like, I looked through probably 50 different recipes for this. There was so much weirdness with nutmeg. Why was nutmeg so common? I have no idea. It doesn't seem very good. So I just did salt, pepper. I'm going to do some garlic powder and some Old Bay. Look at the little baby thing of Old Bay I have. Isn't it so cute? We learned our lesson from the Oregon Trail video that we're making food that we're actually going to eat. To bring it all together, we need some type of binder. So I'm going to do 1 egg and I'm going to put some mayonnaise in it. That's how I do my crab cake. And then what we're going to do, because this has a sauce recipe with it, I think what will be fun is for us to compare sauces. So this is they actually have you put crab meat in the sauce. It's basically like an orange butter sauce, and that has nutmeg in it too. So what I will do is make this orange butter sauce. I'll take these little bits of crab that we don't want and I'll just steep them in it and then take them out so they get that kind of crab flavor. And then we will make like a classic kind of tartar sauce, which is what I normally eat with crab cakes, and we'll compare them side by side. I'm also going to make these a little more flat because that seems to be how they did this one. They kind of did them into these flat pucks, and then they made this. Also, they batter these crab cakes. You put them in the fridge for an hour with the batter on them. What the hell? And the batter is just wine, eggs, and flour, which that could be kind of good. So I think we're gonna also try that because why the hell not? These crab cakes really turned into almost like a side quest invention. I did end up following the batter recipe. It turned into bread. It had too much flour in it. And then we had to finesse it. I did make that orange butter and I did put the nutmeg in it, even though it freaked me out a little bit. I also realized I didn't have the ingredients for tartar sauce, so I ended up making an Old Bay aioli, because how does that not sound delicious with crab cakes? But I did batter these, and I did leave them in the fridge for an hour. And I'm telling you, at this stage, I was like, what the hell are we gonna do now? I was like, this is not it. Guess what? We trusted the process. We fried them in the oil. We did the thing. You just gotta scrape them off, do a little 1-2, and they turn into more of like a crab croquette. Either way, absolutely beautiful, golden brown, and delicious. Okay, so that was 250 years of American hosting condensed into one very chaotic afternoon in a wig. If I'm recapping, Salmagundy taught me that composed salads as a flex isn't a Pinterest invention. It's a 300-year-old hosting move. The punch reminded me that showing off with your signature cocktail is just what people have always done. They just used to have to import a lime for that privilege. The crab cake genuinely shocked me. Frying it up, and somehow it still turned into the thing every restaurant in this city puts on the menu. Super delicious and super surprising. Favorite of the day? Definitely the punch. Most surprising? 100% this salad. If you want to go down this rabbit hole yourself, I'm linking all the original historical recipes I used for this video down in the description. They're all real, sourced from Colonial Williamsburg, and honestly worth a read just for the 18th century language alone. And if you like this one, make sure you like the video and subscribe. It genuinely helps a ton, and I've got more of these history meets the table videos coming. Thank you for joining me at the table today, and hopefully I'll see you here at the table again soon. Bye!